Good afternoon, Randall Meyer, Assistant DA, Jefferson Parish. And we're opposed to Mr. Johnson for really two reasons: the brutal nature of the offense in which Mr. Daniel McElvain was killed, and I know that he did attempt to flee to Texas, but then was caught in Gramercy, and this remains victim opposition.
Well, that's the old faithful Mr. Reliable, Randall Meyer, Assistant DA of Jefferson Parish. And this parole hearing's taken place September of 2024. But before we watch it, we're going to take a blast to the past, to his 2023 commutation hearing. And then we'll fast forward to the present. With that, let's jump in.
So Gregory Johnson, your DOC number is 119762. You're here seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in Jefferson Parish, October 1987, to a life sentence for a second-degree murder conviction. Mr. Johnson, is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you answer Mrs. Jackson's questions?
All right, good morning, Mr. Johnson. My name is Bonnie Jackson. Your case has been assigned to me, so I'll start the questioning. How old are you, Mr. Johnson?
I am 57.
And how old were you when you committed this crime?
I was 20.
And how long have you been incarcerated?
Over 36 years.
Could you just tell us what happened on September 8th of 86, what your role is in that, what was your role and how did this crime come to be?
Yes, my co-defendant and I came down here from Dallas to pick up a car his girlfriend had left down here when she lived down here, and things got haywire.
Okay, now, see, when you say things got haywire, that means you're not telling me what happened. So tell me what happened. How does that turn into a homicide?
Well, we were supposed to be picked up by his girlfriend and taken back to Dallas. While we were waiting at this motel, we came up with this crazy idea to take this man and tie him up and take him back to Dallas with him and let him go. So we stepped into the motel room. My co-defendant hit him.
Wait, sir, stop talking for a moment. Prior to that, prior to being at the motel, what had you and your co-defendant been doing?
We were just sitting outside this motel because we checked out of the room we were in.
Motel, sir, what had you and your co-defendant been doing before you even got to the motel? What had you been doing?
I don't understand your question. Doing prior to, like, we drove down there, we checked into a motel. We the night before we went down to Bourbon Street, ran up with his girlfriend, and they kind of had a falling out. And then we drove back to the motel. I had my car. We ended up having a fender bender right there at the motel and getting it stuck. So the next day it was time to check out. We checked out the room and he called his girlfriend and they agreed to come pick us up. But they had some things to do first, so we had to wait a few hours. During this time, we got drunk, sat out there and talked. And this man,
what? During this, what?
We were just sitting out there talking to each other. This man was in a room next to the one we were in. He'd come out and he talked to us. He was very congenial. Just shooting the stuff. So when the man stepped off at a point, me and my co-defendant came up with this half crazy plan to get this man, tie him up, put him in his car, and take him back to Dallas with us in the man's car.
Why? Why were you going to do that?
Really just craziness. My co-defendant kind of was agitated with his girlfriend, didn't really want to ride back with her. So he thought maybe we could get back like that instead.
So what did you all do?
Excuse me?
So what did you and your co-defendant do when you saw the man?
So we asked if we could step in and use his restroom because we were checked out of the motel we had. And he said, sure. And when we stepped in there, my co-defendant clocked him and knocked him out and jumped on top of him and commenced to beating him. At that point, I was kind of in a panic. I didn't think it was supposed to, the plan we even thought about was supposed to go half that far.
So what was your role?
Anyway, huh?
What your role? What was your role in the crime?
My role was that, yes, we talked about doing this, and the way it turned out was,
What did you do, Mr. Johnson? I am asking you, what did you
Well,
do?
after that happened, he had asked me to get some cutters so we can get some stuff to tie him up with. So I went and got the cutters and came back, and we went to cutting cords off of lamps and air conditioning and stuff, and we tied him up. At that point, we put a cord around his neck and started choking him. That's when I said,
So both of you put a cord around his neck and started choking him?
yes, ma'am.
Why?
There's no explanation. It's senseless.
Agree.
I wasn't thinking straight.
And so y'all choked him. What else did you do to him?
That was it. I got to the point he hollered something about how long does it take to choke somebody? And that's when I let go of the cord and told him, let's go.
And what did y'all do after choking the victim?
We left him there, got his keys and took his car and proceeded to lead back to Dallas.
And what happened after that?
We made it from Metairie to about Gramercy when this man's car broke down. So we ended up hitchhiking to a gas station and called back to the motel asking if his girlfriend had arrived yet.
And then what?
And then they said, no, we'll just leave a number and we'll get her to call you when she does arrive.
How did you all get back to the motel?
Back to the motel. We didn't get back to them. We were arrested in Gramercy at that gas station.
So, you indicated that you indicated in your application that you participated in the homicide, but you said that alcoholism is a factor. Like, explain what you mean by that?
Well, if I wasn't drunk, if I was in my right mind at that time, I believe none of this would have ever happened.
What I mean,
Excuse me?
you said alcoholism, that means a problem with alcohol. I'm asking you to tell me about your problem with alcohol.
Oh, I was at a point in my drinking where I'd wake up in the morning and have Budweiser with my Captain Crunch.
And how long had you been drinking excessively? When did you start drinking excessively?
That excessively probably right after I got out of high school in 2004.
And why do you think that was?
Why do I think I
Mhm. Why'd you start, why did you develop a drinking problem so early?
a lot of things going on in my life. My parents had gotten divorced. That kind of upset me. Peer pressures started me drinking. Once I started, it was kind of out.
When were you in the National Guard, Mr. Johnson?
I went to active duty in February 2006 and completed active duty.
What do you mean by active?
Well, National Guard, in National Guard, you go to Army active duty where they train you. And then once you finish this active duty, you return to your state and do your National Guard duties.
So basically it was boot camp.
Well,
Basically you went through boot camp,
right, boot camp and advanced training.
right? But you weren't deployed anywhere, you just went through boot camp and then you came back to your state, is that
Correct.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So let's talk about the last 36 years, Mr. Johnson. As I've looked at your record, you've had 22 write-ups, which given 36 years is not an excessive number of write-ups. Your last write-up was in 2011, and that was for contraband. And so what was the contraband?
That was a failed piss test due to marijuana.
The urine test,
Yes, ma'am.
and you were using marijuana in 2011.
Yes, ma'am.
I also noticed you had several contraband write-ups in addition to the one in 2011. Were those for dirty urine screens or for drugs? What were the other contraband write-ups you had?
The only other contraband I had that was a drug charge was one other one.
And when was that?
That was in
Remember?
2005.
What was that for?
That was for marijuana.
Okay, I show a contraband in 88, and 89, and 92, and 99, and 98.
Okay.
Had a lot. So what were the other contrabands about?
Some of them were about like battery packs, simple stuff like that, where you hook 4 batteries up for save double A's, you use D batteries instead.
I see that you lost 120 days of good time. What offenses caused you to lose 120 days of good time? Remember why you lost 120 days of good time?
I had a respirator mask in a hobby shop that I used to block the dust. And they said that I stole the mask. And that was one of the contraband charges also. And they took 120 days for it.
So, I've looked at your programming record and I see that you attended Northwest Missouri Community College in 1992, but it doesn't appear that you received any kind of degree or diploma. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I got locked up on an incident report saying my life was in danger, and they ended up sending me to Camp D, where I was unable to finish the program because I got moved away from the program.
And then I looked at your just programs in general, and it looks like the last time you've taken any kind of program was in 2016. That was 100 hours of pre-release. Why haven't you taken more programs over the course of your time? Like I said, the most recent one that I showed was in 2016, which was 100 hours of pre-release.
Well, I just finished thinking for a change. Do you have that document?
I do, but if I might have read it, but
That was
thinking for a change, they show you did in 2014, Living in Balance 2014, Cage Your Rage 2013, and 100 hours of pre-release in 2016. This is from your master prison record. So those are the dates that I have of the program that you've taken.
But my thinking for a change should have been 2022. I just now finished that.
You took it twice?
Yes,
Did you
ma'am.
took it twice?
Yes, ma'am.
And what other programs have you taken recently? Besides thinking for a change?
That's the only one since 2016.
And why haven't you done more to try to help yourself?
Well, I got shipped from Camp J to Camp C because they closed Camp J down in 2018. And before I could really get set up with some more programming there, we ran into COVID.
But we're talking about 36 years in prison. Not like you just got there. I mean, 36 years, we've seen inmates with lots more programs with life sentences than you have. I'm just trying to figure out why you weren't motivated to take any more programs to improve yourself. What's your job at the prison?
At the moment, I work at the Camp C Concept Club as a vice president.
I said job. What's your job? What kind of job is that?
Well, I handle the books for inmates putting money in the club, where I write their tickets, when they order food, keep track of their balances and all that, do some of the ordering itself for the club, for the products they need for the sale.
What other job? What was your job prior to that?
While I was at Camp J, I worked at the tool shed. I took care of the inventory there. I cut the grass. I fixed the lawnmowers, the weed eaters, and kept track of the soap.
So, if you were to be successful, Mr. Johnson, what's your transition plan?
Can you repeat that question?
If you were to be successful with your request, what would be your transition plan?
I would go to the parole project let them get me accustomed to a civil life again, and then I would try to join my mother in Dallas and get a job.
How old is your mother?
My mother just turned 80.
Right? And how is she going to be able to support you?
I'm gonna do my best to support myself as much as I can, and
What kind of job skills do you have?
well, the Army taught me light wheel vehicle mechanics, in which I used as a basis for the work I did on these lawnmowers and stuff. So I could fix lawnmowers, or I could get into.
That was in the National Guard.
Well, I'm
30.
saying, no, not the National Guard side of it, but through that training, I learned to fix.
Let me ask, have you had any job training programming since you've been incarcerated? Have you taken up any trades while you've been incarcerated?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
Well, for the most part, they weren't offered to people with life sentences because they felt life sentences didn't deserve the training. It was a hard thing to get into a training school.
Have you done any kind of, other than the concept club, have you done any other, have you been a tutor? Have you been a mentor? Have you engaged in any kind of community service work within the prison that you'd like to tell us about?
Yes, in the 90s, I joined a tutor program and did some literacy work for some people.
Well, I saw that you completed tutor training, but I don't see that you were ever actually a tutor. What kind of tutoring did you do?
I did literacy training for people at Camp D.
And how long did you do that?
For about 3 years.
Warren, is there anything you can tell us about Mr. Johnson?
Yes, ma'am. Just to clarify a few things, he did take Thinking for a Change, which is a separate class from anger management. He finished that according to his certificate on November 22nd of 21. He has been a Class A trustee since 2009, generally working as a general orderly, and his last official, which he's had for some time now, has been a groundskeeper and a tool shed employee at Camp C. I did look in his record, and he does have mentioned in his record that in March of 95, it says that in the PM on Monday through Friday, he was a tutor. It doesn't give me the time frame on that. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Warren. Mrs. Johnson, that's all.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions by my colleagues. Can we hear now from Ms. Elizabeth Bentley, Mr. Johnson's mother? Morning, ma'am. I think you're still on mute. You'll have to unmute your microphone.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say that I know that Greg has a supportive family. We've been supportive of him and his efforts even before he was incarcerated. And since he's been in prison, we've supported him with visits and calls and messages. And back when we could send him packages, we sent packages. He went into prison, as he said, as a confused young man. He was looking for his place in the world. But during his time in prison, he has matured. When part of his transition plan, he said, is that he can go to the Louisiana Parole Project to start learning skills needed for life in the outside world. he has the option upon leaving that program of either coming to live with me or coming to live with his brother. I own a home, his brother owns a home, his sister, in fact, owns a home, but she lives in Virginia, so we felt that the Dallas area would be a much better solution for him. As part of his transition plan too, is when he comes to live in Dallas, I think that he would be attending AA meetings. I've looked up and there are several just within about 4 or 5 miles from where my house is. I'll encourage him to attend, and I can attend also the Al-Anon meetings. He's a little bit modest because he does have other skills. You talked about job training. He was in the hobby shop and he was making, he got skills as a wood crafter, and he makes absolutely excellent chairs and other things that he fashions out of wood. And one time he did win the award at the Angola Rodeo for the best handcrafted, whatever it was. And his chairs, I've shown friends pictures of his chairs and other things he's made, and they are just amazed. So that's another option for him, because I know in this area there are opportunities for people who have the woodworking skills. When he is released, and I pray that you find it in your hearts to commute his sentence, he will come home to a large family, brother, sister, nieces, nephews. And I hope that you, like I said, I hope that you do find it in your hearts to commute his sentence so that we can welcome him back.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for your remarks. Mr. Cox, we hear from you, ma'am.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Morning. So I've known Greg since a very early age. I first met him in Cub Scouts. In fact, Elizabeth was our den mother. So about 6-7 years, I've known him my whole life, basically. We were best friends all the way through high school. We did everything together, rode bikes in the neighborhood, and just spent a lot of time together. I also knew Ralph, the co-defendant. And my understanding is that Ralph has got his sentence commuted, which I thought was really, really good to hear. When I first learned of Greg's incarceration, I was really surprised because that's not who I knew him as. We were just good friends, and we did everything together, but we never got into trouble. And it kind of shocked me. It was out of character, I believe. Over the years that Greg's been in Angola, I have visited him probably, I want to say about 6 times or so. Being in Dallas, married, I got 2 kids. It's kind of difficult to get down there, but usually takes a couple of days to do the whole trip. But every time I go down there, I'm always encouraged to see him. It's just good to see my old friend, In the Dallas area, I'm a realtor, contractor, a landlord, and I'm also a business owner. I own 16 rental properties. My business partner owns 22 houses. And we are always in need of people to work on them, fix them up, do roofing, painting, sheetrock, all kinds of work. I'm close friends with a guy named Christian Bielma. He is an owner of a roofing company, and he's told me that he would hire Greg without any problem at all. So there's plenty of work here for him. We can keep Greg busy for sure, and not just busy, but I'm sure we can employ him to do whatever we need on the houses and that kind of thing. I also own a Christmas light business. We're just coming out of our 2022 season. We had a record year. That company is growing. I could certainly use him in that business. That's a very profitable endeavor. And just real quick, Elizabeth mentioned his crafting skills. This is a little jewelry box that he has made. This thing he sent it to me a few years ago, and it's one of my prized possessions, but he's just a remarkable craftsman. I know we can put him to work, and I'm sure he can support himself here. We'll find a way to make that happen. And I just want to let you know, I really miss my friend. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Could we hear now from Parole Project?
Yes, good morning, and Kerry Myers, Parole Project. Apologize for the late entry. Parole Project stands behind Mr. Johnson. We understand that 37 years is a It's 3.5 decades plus, and the world has changed significantly. He is exactly the type of person our program is designed to assist upon reentry. He's a first-time felony offender who made a terrible decision, but he's not, you see the support that he has here. He's not the worst thing he's ever done. He's much more than that. His disciplinary record, he hasn't had a write-up since 2011. Since that 2011 write-up, he has taken Living in Balance 1 and 2. Since that time, he's done the things that he needs to do. He's been a Class A trustee for 15 years. So we believe that he's an excellent candidate for this program. Once he leaves Parole Project, he has a great support system. He's employable, and you can see that here from the people who are here to support him. And we just ask that you grant him his recommendation today.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to hear from your DA's office.
Good morning, Randy Meyer, Assistant DA Jefferson Parish. We're opposed. We are opposed to his request for accommodation of the sentence. Again, I feel that honesty in the commission of the crime is the first step in rehabilitation, and I don't believe Mr. Johnson has been completely honest with us in response to Ms. Jackson's questions in particular. This is a crime that both he and Mr. Dawson participated in beating the victim, both with their hands and with their feet. They brutally beat the gentleman, and then they took a cord, and both of them took an end of the cord, pulled it tight, and strangled the gentleman. Since he's been incarcerated, he's lost 120 days of good time. He's had numerous contraband disciplinary reports, and the last in 2011 was for marijuana. He's failed to obtain adequate programs and job training. He commented that because he had a life sentence, he wasn't able to do some of the programs that were available to other inmates, but that policy has not been in place for many, many years. He didn't. It's clear that he didn't attempt to get back into any of the programs. He didn't try to return to the college program that he had started and didn't complete. And finally, there's very strong, there's victim opposition. The victim's family remains opposed to his request. For those reasons, we are opposed to Mr. Johnson's request for commutation of his sentence.
Sorry. All right, Mr. Johnson, before we turn it over to your attorney, is there a statement you'd like to make to us?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
On that fateful day in 1986, I lay there, got drunk, and without and beat a poor man and killed a poor man for no reason at all. And I've regretted it for all these years. It makes me feel so bad every day I think about it. My remorse chokes me inside. It's something that never should have happened. Something I never even should have thought about doing. I don't know what got into me, but what's done is done, and I can't bring him back. I didn't know he had family, as the DA just said, with opposition. I destroyed part of their life also by doing what I did. I tore my own family apart with this. And I'm so sorry. And even y'all, it was, I caused y'all as taxpayers money having to support my life all these years. I'm sorry to y'all also. If you do grant me this pardon, I will get in the AA program and attend it judiciously till I can't attend anymore. I know it's support's the best thing for addiction. I guess that's about it.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Mr. Nordike.
Thank you. Greg is not the most articulate applicant I've ever represented. That's pretty clear. And I want to try to clarify some things and see if I can make some sense out of some things that may not have made sense. And I'm going to probably try to take them in somewhat of the order that Judge Jackson addressed them. And let's start with 1992 in the Northwest Missouri College. I was actively involved at Angola at that period of time, and I can tell you what happened. I know he got locked up for protection, but in addition to that, in 1992, the Pell Grants program ceased at Angola. Congress stopped it, and Northwest Community College pulled out of Angola at that point. There were no more college programs from 1992 forward until NOBTS came on board many years later. So that's what happened to all of them, everybody that was involved in Northwest Community College. The second thing is, and I'm having a tough time trying to figure out how to even say this, but Greg is like a lot of folks from those years, from the 80s, the late 70s, the 80s, and even into the early 90s, that they go to Angola, and it was during a time where there was a policy that lifers didn't get any programming, lifers didn't get anything, and he fell into that. I agree with you that later years, people got programming, but if you look at who got the programming, it is mostly the people that were at Maine prison. The folks in the out camps just didn't get the same things that folks at Maine prison did. I'd like you to actually take judicial notice of something here, and that is that for 12 years, Mr. Johnson was at Camp J Bass. When you hear Camp J, you immediately think he was sent there for punishment. He was not. He was sent there as a trustee. He was a trustee at Bass. And here's where I want you to take judicial notice. There were no programs to speak of at Camp J. There have not been programs at Camp J historically at Bass. The only thing they ever had at Bass was a hobby shop. And there's not much he could do other than work in the hobby shop. And that was for 12 years. What he didn't tell you is that he was assigned to work in the tool shed there and fix lawnmowers. He had his mom buy books on gas maintenance repair and send them to him so he could fix the lawnmowers better. And he did that. So he's done what he could. Right at the end of Camp J's existence, before it was transformed, he was sent to Camp C and then Camp D right away. And then COVID hit. All programs were shut down. Now they're back up. But up until when he got into thinking for a change, there were no programs. There was nothing he could do. When I was talking to him last week, we were talking about something he mentioned, which was going to AA. And I said, when you finished living in balance, what about AA? And he said, there was no AA at Camp J. And then we got shut down at Camp C, excuse me. So he just didn't have the opportunities that some folks have had. That doesn't make him a bad person. It just makes him a person that didn't have opportunities. He's been a trustee for 15 years. He's only had 22 write-ups, which doesn't really sound like a lot to me coming from that era. He took living in balance after his last marijuana write-up. He did something about it. He's not as articulate as his co-defendant was. I mean, I listened to that hearing as well. But that doesn't mean he's not just as good of an applicant and just as good of a candidate. he would go to the parole project and then go to an out-of-state living plan and under the interstate compact, and that would be it. He was a tutor for a number of years. He did give back. He has given back. He talks about the Camp C Concept Club, and what I want to express there, and he didn't say it. He is a little modest, but he was hand chosen to go do that job. That club was in trouble at Camp C. He was chosen because of his honesty to go do that work and take care of that. And that was a management decision by Angola. He didn't ask for it. He didn't run for it. It's not a job that he sought. He's been very nervous today. I've talked to him a number of times recently, and he was far more able to talk than he was today. He's obviously scared to death. I would ask, one other thing. Turk talks about programming. I understand he's backlogged for at least one program, victim awareness. So if the board were to grant a commutation, there would be plenty of time for him to be pushed into the victim awareness and any other programming and get that before he would come up for a parole hearing. So I would ask the board to commute him to 99 years and allow him to go forward with that process. Thank you.
I think we'll get to vote. Mrs. Jackson?
Excuse me?
Yeah, Mr. Johnson, I will tell you that I had a lot of concerns going into this when I looked at the fact that you had not done a lot of programming. This is a privilege, not something you have to fight to. You have to earn consideration. But Mr. Nordyke did help me understand some of the reasons why your programming is not on the same level as we typically see. When I take into consideration that your co-defendant was granted a commutation and his role in the crime was just as horrible as yours. I'm going to, because of the fact that you've been a trustee for 15 years, you have a good institutional record. My vote today would be to grant a commutation to 99 years with immediate eligibility. I'm just going to vote, Mr. Johnson. But again, Mr. Nordyke helped me understand why your resume isn't what I would have hoped it to have been. And you do have a good support network. So my vote is to recommend a commutation, 99 years with immediate parole.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning,
Mr. Johnson.
Good morning.
Morning. Mr. Johnson, I've listened intently. I've read information I had multiple times, and the crime that you and your co-defendant committed was this is as egregious as I've seen any crime. A 53-year-old man, you're 20 years old, and you kicked, punched, and beat this man to death. Strangled him and left him in a room to die if he wasn't dead when you left with his car. Based upon victim opposition, based upon law enforcement opposition, based upon adamant opposition from the DA's office, and you've only had one program in the last 6 years of incarceration in a ban on lifers not taking programs. It's been long disbanded. My vote is to deny your request.
Mr. Miracle.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Johnson, your interview was not a good one today. And I believe it was not a good one because I think that Mr. Nordyke is right. You're nervous, afraid, scared, but I think you've been honest. Sometimes your honesty hurts you, but you've been very honest today. There were a lot of things that I think you didn't explain very well. But Mr. Nordyke did a very good job of explaining this. The crime is horrible. All murders are horrible. There's no question of that. We're here to determine who you are today and what you've accomplished. There are a lot of reasons why you didn't take a lot of programs and what you didn't do. You have a lot of support. You've accomplished a lot of things while you've been. I'm willing to take a chance. My recommendation is going to be to the governor to commute your sentence to 99 with immediate parole eligibility.
Mr. Gregory?
It's a tough one, but I agree with Mr. Marabella and Judge Jackson. My vote today is to commute your sentence to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility.
All right, Mr. Johnson. This one is a tough one, as everybody has indicated, and you've acknowledged it's a horrible crime. You've been locked up a long time. You've done what you could, I believe. I appreciate Mr. Nordyke's explanation, and I kind of lived through some of that stuff too, so I know what he says is true and accurate about your program availability. So my vote today also is to make a recommendation for a commutation sentence to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility. So you've received one unfavorable vote, 4 favorable votes. So on your behalf, sir, we'll make the recommendation to the governor that your sentence be commuted to 99 years and that you be immediate.
Thank the panel.
Thank you, man.
So they made a recommendation to the governor, and the governor said, sure, I'll sign that recommendation. He actually commuted 56 inmates on October through December of 2023, right before he left office. Here's the list of the inmates. It's quite interesting to go through what people have done to get these life sentences. Some, like possession of Schedule 2, I mean, I understand that. But when you have others where there's 2 first-degree counts of homicide, it makes you wonder. We also have a possession of marijuana in here. Let's see. Here it is. Possession and distribution. It's possession with intent to distribute marijuana. Life sentence. Now here's our prince over here who just got it, second-degree murder. So he's going to have his parole hearing, which we're about to fast forward to the present and watch it September 2024. So really it's a pretty quick process for him. It was just about a year to get this parole hearing. Sometimes you can wait a long time, but because it was a governor leaving office, he wanted to sign it already. He had his agenda. The difference, the caveat here for Gregory Allen Johnson is that there's a new governor in town. There's a new parole board. The governor handpicks the parole board. When the old governor leaves, a new governor comes in. He replaced most of the parole board members. We still have a few remaining, Mr. Pete Freeman and Miss Renatza, but all the other members are new, and they're not going to necessarily agree with what the old parole board did on behalf of the previous governor. So it's not a shoo-in. It's not a shoo-in, and we're going to have to see how it works out for him, and then I'll unpack it. I don't know. How do you feel about this? It's just it's strange that his co-defendants seem to have gotten paroled already. If we had his hearing, I'd show it to you, but we don't. Now, if you do like seeing these hearings where we do back-to-back continuation hearings, there's a playlist below. It's called The Return Of, and we have many, many more hearings coming up in the next few months like this. I personally want to cover the one who got life for possession with intent to distribute marijuana, so we'll look for that to bring it to you as well. Let's see what happens. So with that, let's jump in.
What's your reasoning or what's your opinion of why we should be granting you parole today?
In a,
You can answer the question, yes.
over the last 38 years since I've been incarcerated, I've learned a lot and realized my downfalls. I've taken a lot of programming classes, like Thinking for a Change, Victim Awareness, Anger Management, Living in Balance, and Problem Solving. I think my primary problem when I committed this crime was a problem with alcohol. I pretty much stayed drunk all the time, and it caused my thinking to be irrational. But since that time, I've participated in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've, as I said, participated in Living Balance, where I learned that alcohol addiction is permanent, so I need to keep going to AA to avoid falling after that wagon. And I also learned in Living in Balance to deal with stress, think about the problem, not drink through the problem. I've come to enjoy the clear-mindedness that sobriety has given me. I know you'll see in my record that I had a problem with marijuana a couple of times here, and since then I realized, since taking Living in Balance, I realized marijuana is also a problem. It never was a addiction problem like alcohol was, so I didn't really look at it as a problem until I took Living in Balance. And I realized even though I wasn't addicted to it, it was a problem because it was getting me in bad situations. So I've learned to leave that alone also. Since being here, I've become trustee. I've had jobs where I took my skills I learned in the Army down a little bit to where I worked on lawnmowers and weed eaters. I got into the hobby shop, learned hobby craft trade. Have done well there. I helped build this rodeo ground when they needed assistance when they first erected it. Learned how to form and how to lay bricks, some construction skills. And when they built the Bible college, I volunteered and learned framing and sheetrock and how to hang these drop ceilings and stuff, other construction stuff. For a good while during my trustee stint, I worked at Camp J at the tool shed. As I said, I passed out tools, I fixed the lawnmowers and weed eaters, I cut grass sometimes, I handled the caustic materials like soap, gas, and stuff. And then in 2018, Camp J was shut down, so I was transferred to Camp C, where I reside now. At first, while I was at Camp C, I returned to Camp J every day to, they're still taking care of the camp, so to run the tool shed, cut the grass and stuff, until sometime in 2019, the people in charge of Camp C asked me to step in to help with the club that was failing. And the Camp C club is a club that can't fail because the visiting shelter relies on this Camp C club to feed, the service, the the visiting shed. So they asked me to give up what I was doing, come help the club, and I've been working with the club since, where I've learned management skills and really it's taught me a lot more patience also. If I can be released, I hope I can contribute to society through trying to help the homelessness probably, because I've experienced that myself before. I don't know how I do it, but I look into it, look into how I could help. Also, continuing to go to AA. Honestly, I haven't drinking since that day that I committed this horrible offense. I woke up in the bullpen in Jefferson Parish that morning, laying my head by the toilet. I said, "Man, what am I doing here?" And realized alcohol got me in a world of hurt. Since that day I'm drunk, like I said, I smoked marijuana, didn't find it to be a problem because the addiction wasn't there, but alcohol addiction was definitely a problem. I drank every day. But I feel since my sobriety has been so strong and so long, I can actually go to AA meetings and help as much as I can get help from them. With the support they give me, I can give that much more support back to people that need it.
See, thank you so much. I want to clear something up on the record. I may have said second offensive class, but I just want to clear something up for the record. The present offense is second degree murder. The class is the first offender class for you. And now, I want to ask the warden, do we have anything to say on your behalf?
Yes, just want to add, Gregory's been a trustee for approximately 17 years. He does have a high school diploma before he came in. His last disciplinary report was in 2011. He has went through anger management, substance abuse, 100 hours, and victim awareness class. Just want to add that to it.
Thank you so much, Warden. Now I'd like to hear from Mr. Myers.
Parole there, but really glad to speak on his behalf. And I just known him as a good guy my whole life. So yeah, I don't have much more to say other than just good guy. So
thank you so much. Lancaster, you ready?
Yes, and thank you, and thank the committee for hearing Mr. Johnson today. As you know, he comes before you having been granted clemency, which is an important process under our Constitution, and it's in our Constitution because it's so fundamental to the way our system functions in allowing someone to have an opportunity for consideration and the second chance in a system where their original sentence was a mandatory one. The judge didn't have the ability to look into the future and see Greg's capacity to change and address the issues that led him to prison. And so today, he's prepared to demonstrate that to you. And I think his record demonstrates that. He is a first offender. He was 20 years old at the time of this crime, which was committed with another person the same age, Ralph, who has since been paroled. Originally, they both pled guilty to second-degree murder. They both took equal accountability for the crime. When you question Greg later in this hearing, you will hear him taking accountability for the crime. So the two of them together committed this crime. Ralph has since been released. As in his statement, Greg indicated he had a serious drinking problem. He reports that he was basically drunk every day. He drank every day, got drunk every day. At the time of this crime, he and Ralph had traveled from Texas to New Orleans, had gone out the night before, drinking in the French Quarter, getting drunk, driving back to the hotel drunk, sleeping little, waking up the next day, drinking again prior to the crime happening in later that afternoon. Those issues of his alcohol abuse have been addressed. He took Thinking for Change in 2020, Living in Balance in 2014. He's been very active in Alcoholics Anonymous. Since his clemency hearing, he's continued to be a participant in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's an important piece of his reentry plan. Also, since his clemency hearing, he's continued to receive programming. He has done victims awareness and also participated in the victim accountability letter writing portion of that programming. As far as his programming goes, Greg has taken pretty much everything that's available to him to prepare him for release, including 100 hours of pre-release. He has 480 days of CTRP credit. So he's maxed out on the ability to obtain applicable CTRP credit, because that maxes out at 360 days. So as far as programming goes, he's done all that he can do. He has a very low Tiger score, which indicates that he is pretty much no risk to recidivate. His trustworthiness and dependability has been recognized by the institution, not only with his Class A trustee status, but the jobs in which he's had. He mentioned his placement in Camp J as a trustee. That was a disciplinary camp for the longest time, and Greg was placed there as a trustee to help run that camp in the Bass Dormitory. And so he had a responsibility ensuring that that camp functioned properly, primarily assigned to the tool shed, where he had responsibility of maintaining the equipment in that shed and even going outside the gates of Camp J, cutting the grass, doing things outside of the locked compound area. Currently in Camp C, as he indicated, he is vice president of the Camp C Concept Club. And that's more than what it just sounds, and that this is the inmate-run club for that institution, which provides all of the food services during visitation, has a role in ensuring that organizations within that camp have what they need. Greg reports it's like running a small business, really a social benefit organization, kind of a nonprofit small business with a significant budget. About $10,000 runs through that camp each month. So we're looking at an organization that manages $120,000 a year, and Greg being vice president. He was asked to take on that role primarily because of issues that existed in the Camp C Concept Club prior to him taking that role. That club was really going downhill, and so he was asked to step up and do that work. One thing that I'll also talk about is right now is a really good opportunity for release for Greg. And as members of the committee, which are exercising discretionary parole, the main question is whether or not he would be a public safety risk should he serve the rest of his sentence in the community. He is, 59 years old. In 3 days, he'll be 59 years old. He's still very much capable of working. He has a very strong family support network in Texas where he would go and live, which are available to him now. His mother, if she would have joined the call, you would have gotten to meet her, see that she's fully capable of taking care of herself, managing her household, and she's offering a place for Greg to live in her home, and that's available to him now. Also, employment is available to him now. We know that people who have stable housing, stable employment are very low risk to recidivate, along with a discretionary release. He has the support of the Louisiana Parole Project. So he'll go through phase one programming at the Parole Project prior to his ICOT and going to Texas. And the Parole Project will ensure that he is linked up to reentry services in the Dallas area. So not only will he have the family support, employment support, but we'll ensure that he is linked to organizations within that area that can provide all of the other reentry services that he may need. For those reasons, we request that he be granted parole today under whatever conditions you deem fit. After the interview, if there's anything that I can clarify, I'll speak up at that time prior to the vote to clarify any outstanding questions you might have. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lancaster. The last person we have today with the AD, Mr. Randall Myers.
Good afternoon, Randall Myers, Assistant DA, Jefferson Parish. And we're opposed to Mr. Johnson for really two reasons: the brutal nature of the offense in which Mr. Daniel McElvain was killed, and I know that he did attempt to flee to Texas, but then was caught in Gramercy, and this remains victim opposition, and is not close members of Mr. McElvain's family who were able to participate today, but the record does show some victim opposition. I attempted to contact one woman who is, as I think in the record, she did a victim opposition statement, but I was not able to contact her. In looking at Mr. Johnson's record while incarcerated, I disagree a little bit with what Mr. Lancaster said regarding his programming. I find the programming to be fairly limited. It's been since 2016 that he took most of the programs of 2016 and prior to that, thinking he did the 100 hours in 2016. He did do Thinking for a Change in 2021. There was nothing between 16 and 21. Then after the pardon hearing, he then took the two victim programs, and there's been nothing else, and that's a little bit concerning to me. I had a couple of questions that I wrote down that I would like to have seen answered, and Mr. Lancaster, I think, answered one. And there are no certificates of record showing that he was participating in the NAAA program. Any meetings during the course of his particularly recent time at Angola. Mr. Lancaster stated that since the clemency hearing, he's been active in those meetings, but I don't see anything of record to say that. And did he just start doing that after the clemency hearings? Was he involved prior to the clemency hearings with the AA and NA meetings? Because that alcohol abuse seems to be a significant issue in this matter. Looking at his record, he's got a couple of certificates from the Northwest Missouri Community College. And in my mind, I question whether he had obtained any degrees from them. He had some perfect attendance certificates and some certificates showing he did well at the college in the courses. If he didn't get any diplomas, I'd like to know why not. I think that's an important thing for us to look at. If this committee does decide that it's appropriate to grant Mr. Johnson, I would recommend that he be granted only to the out-of-state residents in Dallas, and that he also be mandated to take a certain amount of whatever y'all determined it would be appropriate, but be mandated to continue with AA and A meetings while he is in Dallas. So thank you. That's all we have.
Thank you so much. Mr. Johnson, your case is being handled by Ms. Ledoux, and she will start the questioning, and the rest of the board will follow.
Mr. Johnson, were you initially charged with first-degree murder?
Yes, ma'am.
And second degree was given to you as a plea bargain.
Yes, ma'am.
And then it was commuted to 99. What happened with your co-defendant that has been paroled, Ralph Dawson? How was his release? What was the mechanism for his release?
He was commuted to 99. Also, he made parole a couple of years ago, and he went through parole project and found a job in Baton Rouge.
Have any contact with him?
Not lately.
Go ahead.
I have had a few correspondences from him, but not lately. Not within the last year.
How did y'all get connected to commit this crime? Why did you leave Dallas and go down there together? Y'all were working together, or y'all were just on a little vacation trip, or?
Well, he had a girlfriend that had a roommate that used to live down here in Metairie, and she had left a car down here before moving to Dallas, and they were headed down here. She said we could follow them down later on because they left like that Thursday. We came that Friday after I got off work. But she said if we came down here and got the car going, that Ralph could have that car and he could bring it back to Dallas. So we came down here under the pretense of getting this car.
Was he your friend? Is that what?
Well,
you and Ralph, friends?
Ralph was a friend.
Okay. Wondering. I do want to point out something. You realize that marijuana was not good for you, right? And so you quit the marijuana.
I realize it's a problem for me.
Okay.
I did.
What about the rules? Was breaking the rules a problem? Because like you did the marijuana, but it was against the prison rules. So you quit just because marijuana wasn't good for you. But what about the prison rules?
Yes, it was a violation of prison rules, and that was also. That's how it ultimately became a problem for me. Breaking the prison rules, and I actually, on my last write-up, lost my trustee status for a brief period of time behind breaking the rules. And I realized, well, it's not worth this. I worked my way. It took me a long time to make trustee anyway. And to lose it like that made no sense. So.
Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Boris? I don't have a question. Neither do I. Is the panel ready to vote?
A few things given Mr. Myers' statement that I just want to respond to because he asked for a little clarification that I hope I can offer. Since the 2011 write-up, and I'll try to do these in date order. Mr. Johnson has had Thinking for a Change in 2021, Cage Your Rage in 2013, Living in Balance, both 1 and 2 in 2014, 100 Hours of Pre-Release in 2016, Thinking for a Change, I already mentioned in 2021. As far as there is an Alcoholics Anonymous certificate that I did place in the packet, so you should have that shows his continued demonstration in AA. So those programs were specific after that 2011 write-up, and those are the programs which have led to his access in CTRP credit on his master prison record. So he has addressed, I think the record demonstrates both his alcoholism and the 2011 write-ups. Mr. Meyer also raised the question of the participation in the Missouri Community College program that did exist at Angola in the early 1990s. At the time Mr. Johnson participated, that was through a Pell Grant program to pay for that community college, which the Pell Grant program went away. And that community college program also became unavailable to folks at Angola. And so Mr. Johnson was unable to continue and complete that program, although his initial participation, perfect attendance, and Dean's List demonstrates that had that remained available, he would be most likely to have participated and completed that program. So I hope that clarifies some of the issues that Mr. Meyer asked questions about. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is the panel ready to vote? Ms. Ledoux?
Mr. Johnson, my vote is to deny today, and the reason I'm going to vote to deny is because I have heard through what you've been saying. In my mind, I'm not sure your mind is ready for release. And I believe that you get a break from first-degree murder to second-degree murder, and now you've been, commutated to 99. I just feel like there's need for a little bit more work. So you do have law enforcement opposition, and you have some issues I think you need to continue to work on. What's to deny?
Mr. Bowers? I'm going to concur with Ms. Ledoux for the same reason. And my vote also is to concur. You've been denied today, Mr. Johnson, and this ends our session with you.
And that was quick and really an uneventful hearing. And I think really the takeaway for me at least, is that this new parole board, they made up their mind before the hearing because there was nothing there. I mean, it's not like they dove in and poked around and said, what's going on? Really, the hearing was just, there was nothing. There was nothing he could have done to have gotten parole. He came in, I think, thinking from the past hearing, okay, I'm going to talk about the substance abuse and how and they're just like, yeah, no, I'm not feeling it. You're not getting granted. And Carrie Myers must be thinking, oh man, this is going to be a tough year for business, because he's not getting the clients that he expected. And this makes sense. It's, again, these commutations all happened from the previous administration. The governor pardoned hundreds in last year in 2023. Just in the last final months of his reign, I don't know, of his term. Thank you. He had 57 pardons from October through December. And I don't know if some of you will remember, but he tried commuting those who were on death row. He tried commuting like 20 of them and to life. And it's just, really an uneventful hearing. And I didn't even think much about playing it, except that we had kind of a classic Miss Jackson and then a no way Roche moment there in the commutation that made me want to pull it up. And thank you, Richard, for lining up those dots so that we knew about that. And if you like where we go and take these blasts to the past, there's a playlist designated for it. The playlist is called The Return Of. Maybe I should change the name. Let me know in the comments section. Change it to Blast to the Past. But we have many of these coming up. I'm investing a lot of time and effort into making them. If you like these blasts to the past hearings, let me know. If you don't, it's hard. The YouTube algorithm is wacky. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but the numbers they're just not what they used to be. The YouTube, I see comments all the time from people saying, wow, I didn't know you were still posting, man. I haven't seen your content in 6 months. So YouTube is doing its thing, and I have no idea why. So it is helpful when the data doesn't tell me what you like, if you can tell me what you like. And This parole board, look, it's Tillis. I don't know why he took this job. He doesn't seem to be paying attention. He doesn't seem to have much enthusiasm. He doesn't seem to be very good at it. It's quite, and I think many of you feel the same way. There's a lot, even in this hearing, I cut it out, but at the beginning of the hearing, it was brutal. It was like a 6-minute introductory that was loaded with mistakes. He had to come back and correct himself after the hearing gets started. And we've been seeing these mistakes in every form and way. And it's, just because you're handpicked by the governor doesn't mean you can suck at your job. And I think a lot of us are tired with seeing government employees that seem to have a license to be bad at their job and not have repercussions. We're seeing it all over the place, and it's kind of it's frustrating. It shouldn't be that way with any occupation. And it's been like, what, 6 months, 7 months already. It's not like it's his first day at the office. I mean, in a recent hearing, I'll give one extreme example, but it happened today, actually, the same day of this hearing. He's running the case. The DA spoke. They're ready to wrap it up. And he says, well, shouldn't we wait for the DA to speak? And the DA just spoke. So how can you make that statement? Are you just completely not present? Like, you're in La La Land. How do you not know the DA just spoke? It's unexplainable. Anyways, but here's the other members that we're still getting to know. And this is the Tillis. Now, he has his experience. Really, he's been a businessman. For 30 years, he's president of oil field and plant maintenance. He's a smart man. He's a successful man. He's probably a very wealthy man to have 30 years as president of an oil field plant maintenance Inc. I don't know what that is, but I'm guessing. And then he was, Angola's prison ministry. He was Angola's minister, according to this, Angola's preacher. And when I first saw him joining, I was very excited. Many of you would remember this. Oh my gosh, Angola's preacher. He probably has stories to tell. He probably has seen more. But there has been zero evidence of it. What do I mean? We're in Angola right now for this hearing. We've been in Angola. We have not yet seen a single inmate go up and say, "Hey, Chucky," and Chucky say, "Oh, hey, I've been going to Angola and preaching, doing my ministry work for the past 15 years," but no one knows who he is. So I actually don't buy it. I've seen no evidence of it. Anyways, we have Miss Stapleton, who I am adore, and I think many of you do as well. And I have an emoji coming from Miss Stapleton soon. It's being worked on right now. You actually may have it already in your emoji if you're a channel member by the time you're watching this. This is Miss Jerry Ledoux, who we just saw, right? And she's great. And why she's great? Well, she's been on the parole board before. She was serving for 5 years under a previous administration. So they brought her back. So you can tell her experience, her knowledge, her efficiency, it's there. And she served in the legislature, it's my understanding. Yeah, she was a congressional liaison for the House Representative Speaker. And then we have Danny Barris, which is very much like Pete Freeman. So he spent 37 and a half years in probation and parole. Can you imagine 37 and a half years? It's like, here's your pension, here's your retirement. No, I'm going to work another 7.5 years. And he's probably getting full pension. Some people like to work. So anyways, there you have it. What else can I say? He got denied. And I guess if you want to take from his supporters' perspective, and on that note, I fast forwarded through the supporters. Let me know in the comment section if you want me to do that or don't want me to do that. For me, it's more work to fast forward it. I have to go in there, I have to edit it, I have to I'm doing it for you. I'm not doing it to be disrespectful to their supporters, though. I do want to make that known. I am not disrespecting the supporters. It's just that if it takes 7 or 8 minutes for them to say something that doesn't that they're just going, it's just, then I'm not gonna, I don't really feel need to play it. I think what's important to note when we see the supporters that come up for a follow-up hearing is are they the same supporters? If we see it's the same supporters, I think that's sending a strong message. His future potential employer, he came back twice. He said, I'll employ this man. That's important to note. If it's a relative member or a fiance, when you see someone's fiance come and speak, oh, blah, 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 and then they don't show up for the next hearing, that sends a louder message than any statement that can be made, in my opinion. He did have a different attorney. Nordyke, I think, is the best attorney in Louisiana that we see for these type of parole or commutation hearings. This attorney here is also good. He's quite efficient, but Nordyke is, in my opinion, the most qualified. I think he has the most respect from the board and Louisiana in general in that whole world. But he didn't show up for this one. I don't know why. Anyways, with that, I'll let you go.
Mr. Johnson, I've listened intently. I've read information I had multiple times, and the crime that you and your co-defendant committed was this is as egregious as I've seen any crime. A 53-year-old man, you're 20 years old, and you kicked, punched, and beat this man to death.